Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome to Let's Start Story on What If Drunk Naruto Build Dominant Harem with INO. So do 4 blue hearts comment, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video and please share with your friends and watch till end. Also check out Patreon for I have upload Naruto X Rias and Akino uncensored spicy version, link in description. 2 blonde figures and their young daughter sat ensconced in an oppressive silence, a stark contrast to the usual familial chit-chat. Normally, the air would be filled with banter about the mother's latest business venture, the father's workplace anecdotes, and the usual parental probing into their daughter's school life. But tonight, the atmosphere crackled with an unspoken tension, as if the very shadows were holding their breath. The daughter's voice cut through the silence like a knife, her words hanging heavy in the air. "Hey Dad, do demons really exist?" The sound of utensils clattering against plates shattered the quiet, echoing ominously around the room. When there is casual conversation, there may be the occasional moment of brevity when responding to think-over replies. But the pause that followed this particular query was laden with a gravity that turned seconds into eternities. The father's voice, usually warm and jovial, took on an uncharacteristic edge of steel. "Why don't we talk about what happened in school today, honey?" Ignoring her father's attempt to steer the conversation, the daughter's hands trembled as she persisted, her utensils clinking against her plate. Did they not exist? The mother, always the voice of reassurance, tried to soothe her daughter's fears. "Sweetheart, there's no need to worry about such things. Of course, they don't exist." But the daughter's anxiety was palpable, her sentence broken by stammers. "Are you sure? Because..." Before she could finish, the father interjected firmly, "Tell us about your day at the academy, dear." The tension in the room grew, a tangible entity, as the question of demons lingered, unanswered and ominous. "All right, class, listen up," Haruka announced with authority, capturing the attention of his students. "Today we're going to delve into our village's history, focusing specifically on the different clans, their influence, and their unique techniques." As he listed key topics on the board, a chorus of groans filled the classroom, signaling the students' lack of enthusiasm for another history lesson. Haruka's eye twitched in frustration, but he persisted. "This isn't just for fun. You're in your final year at the academy. Soon, you'll take your exams, become shinobi, and you'll likely work alongside members of these clans on missions. I know politics might not seem exciting to teenagers, but by the end of this year, you'll be regarded as adults. You might even be grateful for these lessons. And, if you all behave," he drew out the word, emphasizing it for effect. "We might even see a demonstration of their techniques by the clan members in our class." The mention of a live ninjutsu demonstration sparked a shift in the class's mood, excitement replacent. Boredom in all but one spiky-haired boy lounging at the back. "What, are you serious?" His tone conveyed disinterest and annoyance rather than excitement. "I never agreed to putting on a show," he remarked. Haruka chuckled. "That's the fun part. None of you agreed because I reached out to your parents beforehand. They've all consented, ensuring that each clan member here is capable of performing at least one technique. In fact, your parents are thrilled about showcasing your clan's strengths." The mention of parental approval drew a sharp glare from Sasuke. Haruka noticed and mentally chastised himself. "Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that," he thought, regretting his words. "Bottom line, this is the year we move to training primarily on ninjutsu. Consider this lesson an introduction to that field." The lesson progressed, with Haruka discussing the unique attributes and historical significance of each clan. He covered a range of topics, from the Nara clan's renowned intelligence to the Uchiha clan's impressive combat skills. He even mentioned clans that had lost their prominence or were once allies, like the Uzumaki clan and their contributions during the past Shinobi World War. "Uzumaki? Does that mean Naruto has relatives?" a student inquired, sounding puzzled. Haruka shook his head somberly. "No, unfortunately. The Uzumaki clan, along with their respective village, was decimated in that war. Naruto, just like me, was orphaned during the fox attack that rattled the village many years ago. He was given the surname Uzumaki by Lord Third as a symbol. It represents the will of fire that persists within us all, never extinguished, always ready to be reignited." The students seemed unresponsive to Haruka's meaningful message, leaving him slightly disheartened. They may not grasp its significance now. But I hope one day they will, he thought. Suddenly, Kiba's voice broke through the quiet. Hey, speaking of Naruto, where is he? He asked, his tone escalating from curiosity to annoyance. He's always late, but to not show up at all. We're halfway through class. How is that even allowed? His frustration was evident as his voice rose. Ruruka firmly interjected, what Naruto does is not your concern. I'll address his lateness. You focus on the class. Kiba muttered under his breath, clearly disgruntled by the perceived unfairness. As the lesson continued, students began demonstrating their clan techniques. Shikamaru, having made a comment earlier, was chosen to go first. He sighed, resigned to his fate. What a drag. Ruruka then explained his role in the demonstrations. I'll act as your target when needed, like for Shikamaru's demonstration now, and later for Ino's. The class watched, eager to see their peers' abilities in action. Light streamed into the modest apartment of the young, blonde Naruto Uzumaki, who was oblivious to the time as he woke with a loud, bellowing yawn. Stretching his arms wide, he puffed out his chest proudly. Ah, what a great sleep. Looks like I don't need this alarm clock anymore, he boasted, grabbing the device from his worn bedside table. Waking up before the alarm, that's me. I am totally ready to crush this year. It must be early. It's only, his expression suddenly twisted from confidence to sheer panic, his face paling as he realized the time. 12:30. In a frenzy, he hurled the alarm clock across the room, where it nearly shattered upon impact. He bolted out of bed and haphazardly threw on his clothes, narrowly avoiding the embarrassment of wearing his shirt backward or mismatching his sandals. Ah, first day of my final year at the academy, and I've already blown it. He grimaced, recalling how he had set the alarm for 6:30 a.m. to give himself plenty of time before the school day began at 8 o'clock. Now, with class already half over, a sense of dread filled him. Ruruka-sensei is going to kill me, he thought, racing toward the school building with urgency. Most students, when running late, try to slip into class unobtrusively, using a doctor's note to explain their tardiness or quietly taking their seat to avoid disrupting the lesson. Naruto, however, took a decidedly different approach. Bursting into the classroom, Naruto hollered, "Ruruka-sensei, I'm so sorry I'm late." His dramatic entrance caused chaos, nearly colliding with his teacher. The disruption led to Ino's sudden collapse to the floor. Ruruka-sensei's head seemed to swell in size with anger as he yelled at Naruto, "Naruto, you idiot. We were in the middle of demonstrating the Yamanaka clan's technique, and you've completely disrupted it. Now Ino is unconscious, and it could take hours for her to recover." Naruto, looking sheepish, started to explain, "I'm sorry, you see my alarm was broken, but he was swiftly cut off by his teacher. Enough. You're responsible for this mess, so you'll be the one to take Ino to the infirmary and make sure that she's okay." Aye, Ruruka-sensei," Naruto saluted. A faint smile on his face despite the scolding. To Naruto all attention he would get was good attention. The rest of the class couldn't help but snicker at the spectacle. Carrying his unconscious classmate, Naruto made his way to the infirmary. Upon arrival, the nurse, a standard medical ninja genin capable of treating civilians and trainees but not yet seasoned for field missions, greeted him with a neutral tone. Inquiring about the situation, Naruto explained, somewhat bewildered, "I'm not really sure what happened. I barged in, bumped into Ruruka-sensei, and the next thing I know, she's unconscious. Then I got yelled at and told to bring her here." The nurse replied dryly, "Knowing you, Naruto, it probably was your fault. You're always up to some sort of prank. It was an innocent mistake this time, I swear." Naruto protested, but his plea fell on deaf ears. The nurse simply shook her head, resigning herself to helping Naruto place Ino in a bed. Just as Naruto opened his mouth to ask if she would be alright, Ino's body stiffened and her eyes shot open. She gasped for air and looked around. Where am I?" she cried out, frantic. "You're safe, in the infirmary," the nurse answered. "You had an accident in class. Your friend here brought you." Ino looked toward Naruto and her blood ran cold. Just as fast as she had woken up she was passed out once more. "Looks like she might need more rest. It would be best for you to return to class." Naruto threw a worrying look at Ino. "As much as she has been mean to me, I still feel bad for causing so much trouble." He nodded at the nurse and returned to class. After using the mind transfer jutsu, everyone thought I just missed and bounced around the room, but I actually entered Naruto's mind, Ino explained, her voice trembling at the memory. Her father, Inoichi, sighed deeply and massaged the bridge of his nose. I feared something like this might happen, given you're in the same class as that boy. I just didn't expect it to occur so soon. The mother at the table remained silent, uncertain how to respond to such a grave matter. So, what did I see inside his mind? Ino asked, still shaken. She recounted her experience in Naruto's mindscape, where she encountered the fox spirit, its overwhelming energy instilling in her nothing but terror. The fox bombarded her with feelings of fear and negativity, making it hard for her to breathe. Her mind was inundated with harrowing images of abuse and loneliness. Inoichi spoke with a tone that left no room for argument. What I'm about to tell you must not leave this room. Do you understand? Ino nodded. He continued, years ago, our village was attacked by a tailed beast, one powerful enough to destroy the village without a second thought. Reluctantly, Inoichi decided to share with his daughter secrets usually reserved for high-ranking officials. He revealed that Naruto was the vessel for the fox spirit, a truth that, over time, became an open secret due to rumors. Ino learned that most of the village harbored resentment towards Naruto for a situation beyond his control, something she and her classmates were completely unaware of. The intense energies and emotions she felt in the mindscape were undoubtedly those of the fox spirit. The memories, however, were a different matter. Inoichi revealed that those were likely Naruto's own memories, portraying IFE of being orphaned in the attack and subsequently shunned by the very village he unknowingly protected every day. Ino struggled to digest this revelation. She had, like her peers, ridiculed Naruto. Unaware of the reasons behind his ostracization, she had always thought the derision was due to his boisterous nature. Gradually, she began to put the pieces together, recalling how Iruka-sensei mentioned in class that Naruto was an orphan and how her father confirmed he had no family at all. The realization of his profound loneliness and the pain of being an outcast hit her hard. That's it, I made up my mind. I know what I'm going to do, Ino said, looking directly into her father's eyes. And just what exactly is that? I'm going to become friends with Naruto. The mother's jaw dropped at such a claim. Really? You would be first in line to say how much you hated him before. Ino sighed. He might be an incredibly annoying loudmouth, but no one deserves to be alone, especially not after everything he's been through. I can't help but feel bad. Maybe he just needs someone to show him how to be normal. Inoichi held back a smile. Looks like she's shaping up quite alright. I was worried I might have had to use that memory erasing technique. I think it isn't a bad idea. Just make sure you don't go peeping into his head again. Beep 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 beep. Naruto groggily opened his eyes, stretching his arms as he gradually got out of bed. Amidst a few yawns and the persistent beeping of his alarm clock, he finally snatched the device, his energy now fully awakened. Stupid alarm clock, making me late yesterday, he grumbled, silencing the incessant noise. The alarm served as an unwelcome reminder of his embarrassing episode the day before. Not only had he become a laughingstock in class yet again, but he also had to stay late for a personal lesson review and to clean the classroom. He didn't actually do the lesson review, rationalizing to himself that if Iruka-sensei truly wanted him to learn the material, he would have stayed behind to teach him, rather than having Sasuke meet him in his office for a chat. Naruto begrudgingly admitted to feeling a twinge of jealousy. He always gets all the attention. It's just not fair. He's already proven he's the top student in the class, he thought resentfully. Determined not to let anything hinder his goal of graduating this year, Naruto knew he needed to perform certain techniques to pass. Without even changing out of his pajamas, he began practicing one of them immediately. Forming a seal with his hands, chakras swirling around him, he shouted, "Clone Jutsu." A puff of smoke appeared, revealing a clone that was barely functional, lying tangled and colorless on the ground. Damn it, I practice this every day and I still can't get it right, he exclaimed in frustration. He sighed and walked to his kitchen. Maybe it was best not to train on an empty stomach. He then began his daily routine, consisting of first scanning his kitchen cupboards of something to eat. Cup ramen, cup ramen, cup ramen, a banana, and more cup ramen. Easy choice. While the water heated up, he began doing push-ups until the kettle squealed. He poured the boiling water and then began his squats. The morning routine wasn't too difficult for the boy anymore. 100 push-ups, squats, and sit-ups. All before breakfast, something he made sure to do since the first time he began exercising. Right after eating, he nearly vomited. The day at the academy dragged on uneventfully for INO, who remained unusually quiet, even during lunch. Her thoughts were consumed by the conversation she had with her father the previous night. How many people actually know about Naruto's situation? The other kids seem clueless. Their parents, probably. She pondered, remembering instances when parents had explicitly encouraged their children to mock Naruto. How do I handle this? I can't just suddenly start being friendly with him, it would be too strange. Plus, it would ruin my reputation. I need to find a way to talk to him alone. Despite her newfound sympathy, INO couldn't ignore the fact that Naruto was the outcast of both their class and the village. Her own reputation was at stake, and her pride made her unwilling to make that compromise. She resolved to find a discreet way to approach him. INO. Haruka's voice snapped her out of her reverie. I've asked you twice to answer the question. Is everything okay? You're usually more engaged. His concern was evident, noticing her distracted state. INO, flushed with embarrassment, struggled to find a response. A classmate seized the opportunity to tease her. Maybe she's still not all there, you know, mentally. Laughter followed, with a few boys joining in. Maybe that fancy clan jutsu of yours isn't so great after all. He jeered, turning his joke into a more pointed insult, prompting more laughter from the class. Haruka intervened, quieting the class. Enough. It's unacceptable to treat your classmates this way. Let's move on, class is almost over. A moment of realization struck INO. That's it. As the school day ended, Haruka reminded the class of key subjects to study and skills to practice. INO rose from her desk and approached Sakura, who, along with several other girls, was already trying to get the attention of Sasuke, the popular raven-haired boy. INO knew the routine. Well, the Sasuke fan club would vie for his attention, each girl attempting to make plans with him, until he eventually left and they dispersed. Typically, Sakura would linger until Naruto appeared, inadvertently giving her an excuse to break away from the group. Perfect. He interrupts while everyone else leaves. Some things never change, INO thought, her plan taking shape. As Naruto approached Sakura to suggest they go somewhere, he was swiftly rejected. How many times do I have to tell you, no? I'm too busy anyway, Sakura shouted, her fist raised threateningly. Please, Naruto implored, almost begging. You, INO interjected with feigned irritation, pointing a finger between Naruto and Sakura. You think I'm going to let you off that easily? She said in a hushed yet angry tone. Sakura smirked internally, thankful for INO's intervention. What do you mean? What did I do? Naruto stammered, confused by INO's anger. INO continued, after your stunt yesterday, I'm now the laughingstock of the class. You think I'll just let that slide? Oh no, you owe me. And it just so happens that my family's flower shop needs a good deep cleaning. Her accusation wasn't entirely false, but it provided the perfect alibi in case of prying and suspicious eyes by her classmates. Sakura joined in, laughing. Yeah, I remember that. Looks like you're too busy paying back INO to bother me now. She whispered a quick, thank you, to INO before hurrying out of the class. Despite their rivalry over Sasuke, Sakura felt a sense of gratitude towards INO for diverting Naruto's attention, even if it was just for the day. Naruto stood bewildered and unsure of how to respond. He typically didn't hesitate before speaking, often speaking without thinking. However, in this situation, he felt a tinge of responsibility for the incident. Reluctantly, he admitted, I guess you're right. INO took the lead, deliberately avoiding a straightforward route. To Naruto, it seemed like they were meandering aimlessly, almost going in circles. INO, however, was careful to avoid anyone she knew, thinking, keeping a low profile is so hard. Naruto eventually questioned their direction as they entered another alley, which ended in a dead end with a fence. Hey, where are you taking me? Looks like you just led us to a dead end, he remarked. INO hesitated momentarily before responding, I told you. We're going to the flower shop my family runs. Do you have a problem with that? Remember, you're the one who owes me. This is a shortcut, it's quicker if we hop the fence. As they continued, by C caring about the duration of the journey and INO chiding Naruto for his impatience, they didn't notice a group of boys who had followed them into the alley. Well, look what we have here, Mr. Dead Last. And the girl with the crappy clan jutsu, sneered a familiar voice. Turning around, they saw two boys behind them, one of whom was a classmate who had earlier mocked INO. He stood next to an older boy wearing a leaf headband. Likely his brother, as they shared similar short brown hair and average builds. The taunting continued, so, what are you doing here, in a random alleyway? You guys aren't about to start making out, right? Both Naruto and INO were flustered by the suggestion. After a moment of stuttering, Naruto vehemently dismissed the idea, sticking his tongue out in distaste. Ew, no chance. I just have to help her with stuff, that's all. Yeah, that's right. He owes me after yesterday, and INO's explanation fell on deaf ears. The mocking by the boy and his older brother escalated as they blocked the exit. The younger boy got into Naruto's face, insultingly suggesting that INO should consider someone more in her league, like himself, and then pushed Naruto aside to get closer to INO. He brazenly asked her out, but INO was repulsed, rebuffing him for thinking he could win her over by constantly insulting her. The situation only intensified when the boy grabbed INO's arm. And despite her attempts to push him away and her pleas to let her go, he just kept pulling. The older brother intervened. Calm down, and let her go. Clearly this has escalated, and this really isn't a good look for you. The younger brother aggressively dismissed his intervention. Oh come on, this freak is definitely deceiving INO, his tone expressing nothing but disdain for Naruto. The older brother let out a long sigh and reflected on how their mother's influence had affected his little brother to such a degree. He could remember one family dinner a few years back that resulted in her screaming about him being in the same class as the demon freak, whatever that meant. Naruto took a step forward and growled out the words, I am so sick and tired, his punch reaching the boy's face, of being called a freak. Another punch connected. This led to a physical altercation between Naruto and the younger brother. Meanwhile, the older brother, recognizing his younger siblings are all in causing all of this to turn south, decided not to intervene, thinking that if his brother wanted to act like an adult, he should face the consequences. I cannot keep bailing you out of trouble because you can't keep your mouth shut. Single quote. After a rough minute of scuffle, the boy had Naruto pinned against the wall. He sneered more remarks toward the blonde while kneeing him in the gut. Not so low. Ood now are we. Right before he could finish his sentence, Naruto smashed his head into the boy's skull with such force that split his brow in the process. The boy fell to the ground, a split brow matching Naruto's. Ah, what the hell is wrong with you? He laid squirming on the ground in pain before calling out for his brother. Big brother, why didn't you help me? His voice echoing through the alleyway. Think of this as a lesson to not pick fights with people when you don't have to. Ah, I already know I'm going to get more of a reprimand from mom than you. Come on, get up, we're leaving. The older brother didn't even bother apologizing for the scuffle, simply grabbing his brother and leaving the alleyway. As they left, INO shouted about how he better not tell anyone or else she would personally beat him harder than he could ever imagine. Naruto looked at the ground where a few drops of blood had begun pooling. His silence spoke more than any words. INO couldn't help but feel responsible for the situation, guilt racking her consciousness. Her concerned expression grew when she saw just how badly of a beating Naruto had taken. Sure, he technically did win the scuffle, but he definitely taken more than his fair share of blows. Are you okay, Naruto? Naruto's head, downcast and still pointed toward the ground, revealed no emotion to INO. She couldn't tell his face. He contorted in a mixture of several emotions. No one had ever asked him if he was okay. Truth be told, this wasn't a unique situation to be in, a fight over nothing. This time it hit him in ways different than before. The question was a blow stronger than any punch he had just taken. Without a moment more, his face flew up, reflecting a sheepish grin. He put his arms behind his head and tried his best to act cool. Oh me. I'm fine. Nothing I can't handle. I've been in plenty of fights before. That was nothing, haha. INO's face didn't look convinced. That's not what I'm talking about. She didn't know what to say. She couldn't just outright tell him she knew why he was hated, why everyone outcasted him. Her father's words echoed in her head. Under no circumstance are you to tell Naruto of his vessel status. He will be informed of such information when Lord Third deems it appropriate. This offense carries a severe punishment. So then what are you talking about? Naruto said, confused as ever. Ino sighed and shook her head, dismissing the issue entirely. Let's just get going. It had been a couple hours of cleaning and by this point Naruto was getting bored. Inu, please can we be done? I'm so hungry. As if on cue his stomach gurgled. The girl stood across the store dusting and placing vases in their proper spot. Her face had a look of concentration written all over it. 2 hours and you don't say anything. Good luck being friends at this rate, geez. You're so hopeless. She turned and laughed. Ah, we're almost done, just go polish the floors. That was the first thing I did. Okay. Clean the shelves on your end. They are cleaned already. Well, make sure they're stocked. At this point Naruto had made his way beside his fellow blonde. I already finished the entire list you gave me. He yelled, holding the list up to Ino's face. The scream almost had her falling over. Ah, she yelled, smacking him on the head, receiving an ouch in response. Don't creep up on me like that, geez. After realizing she had just smacked him across his open wound from earlier, she gasped. Oh my god, I am so sorry. Let me see, and her words trailed off and an escaped her mouth when she moved his hand. The split from before had already shut closed, no scab or anything. Is this from the fox? She wondered. Oh, that closed up a while ago, Naruto said nonchalantly. I heal pretty quick. No matter how hard I've gotten beat down, I'm always up the next day, no problem, haha. He chuckled, but Ino didn't find it funny. She stood, puzzled. Looking in his eyes she could see beyond the mask. Behind his confident and boisterous shell there was a boy yearning for the attention that he was so unfortunately deprived of. When I asked if you were okay earlier, I didn't mean physically. The words left her mouth before she could even think. Oh, my head feels fine. I don't usually get headaches when I'm hit anymore. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Naruto. At this point the tone in the room had dropped several levels. You just said anymore. On top of that you mentioned how you've been beaten down plenty of times, and getting into a fist fight just seems like normality to you. In reality, your sense of normal is so far from what normal actually is. Naruto frowned and took a step back. Hey, I came here to help, not get yelled at and called abnormal. I'm not yelling at you. And I am not calling you abnormal. Her tone softened. When I casted that jutsu yesterday I entered your mindscape. Naruto almost fell over, feeling violated by the thought of someone crawling around in his mind. Does that mean you know all of my thoughts I've ever had, all my deepest darkest secrets, and he continued rambling on about all the things that he was worried she would have seen. The fox spirit unsurprisingly did not make the list. Deepest darkest secrets that even you don't know, Ino thought to herself. I saw your emotions, your history too. How you felt growing up. And I was able to experience life through your eyes for a brief moment. Her words weren't entirely a lie, but this was an easier explanation that she knew Naruto would take. He wasn't there for the lesson, so he had no clue. What were the chances he would find out the mind transfer jutsu didn't actually work like that? To her, the chance was not worth worrying about. Naruto's mouth stayed shut for a while, his emotional mask shattered. Oh, at this point Ino couldn't contain herself. I can't help but feel bad. I saw things I wasn't supposed to. Personal things. Things that I'm sure you wouldn't want me knowing. I couldn't help but feel guilty and like I needed to talk to you about it. On top of that, a few tears began streaming down her face and she embraced him into a hug. I'm so sorry for the way you've been treated. By me and everyone else. I had no idea just what you were going through. I didn't know you were so alone. No one deserves that. It was at this moment that she finally realized why Naruto was such a loudmouth. Why he pulled so many pranks and his antics always seemed to rile up everyone around him. He was always being either ignored or verbally berated. When he would rile people up through his pranks he was able to get a laugh and be noticed. It was the only sort of positive attention he received. Naruto's hands laid at his sides. You don't have to do this, he said softly, pushing the girl off him. I accept your apology. Really. It means a lot to me. But, with Ino calmed down, he turned and began walking toward the exit. His face hidden from the girl who had just dropped a bucket of a revelation on him. I think I should still get going. You saw how others acted when you were around me. We don't even really owe each other and you're already getting shade for it. I think it would just be better if we forget this happened. Naruto couldn't stop himself from pushing her away. This was just too foreign. Wah, Naruto, wait. Ino wasn't entirely surprised by the way he acted. Maybe she had come off too strong, but even so she was determined not to let him walk away just like that. He turned around and took a few steps. Hand behind his head as usual. Besides, I'm hungry. I think I'm going to grab some ramen. Fine, we can just forget this ever happened, her words causing a deep frown to form on Naruto's face. I knew it would be too good to be true. The idea of potentially being friends with someone was something that he desperately wanted to be true, but he also knew that doing it like this just wouldn't work. I never entered your mindscape, you never came here. The scuffle in the alleyway. I have no idea what you're talking about. With each word she walked faster and faster, before finally cutting Naruto off at the door. But there is nothing wrong with two classmates getting ramen together after school, is there? For the first time in a long time a grin made its way onto Naruto's face. Not one forced out of habit to look okay. This one, it was genuine. Yeah, I'd really like that, he responded, a small blush glowing across his cheeks that did not go unbeknownst to Ino. Two people, just friends. Getting food together. Nothing wrong with that at all, Ino said with a smile as she followed him out the door, this time letting him take the lead, without a care in the world about the prying eyes of the village. Approximately 2 months had passed since Naruto and the blonde-haired friends formed their bond. During this period, Ino diligently worked to ensure Naruto had more companions than just herself. To her astonishment, she discovered that Shikamaru and Choji already viewed Naruto as somewhat of a friend, as he often roped them into his mischievous escapades. However, Ino noticed that their camaraderie was not profoundly deep. Initially, Ino's influence was subtle, merely suggesting that Naruto be included in their post-academy training sessions. Shikamaru, initially skeptical, questioned her motives. Ino explained that Naruto had helped her by cleaning and assisting in the shop to repay a debt, leading her to offer him a chance to join their training session. In exchange for occasional help at the shop. This explanation relieved Shikamaru, who half hoped Naruto's presence might mean less effort on his part, although this was not always the case. Initially, Naruto sparred with Choji. And despite struggling in combat, his seemingly endless energy was hard to match. Eventually, an exhausted Choji would bow out, leaving Naruto to focus his remaining vigor on the other two. What should we do now? Naruto asked, standing over a cloud-gazing Shikamaru. You guys said we'd train together, but we haven't really done much. Exhausted and seated, Choji responded with a wheeze. Speak for yourself, Naruto. I'm spent. I could really go for some food right now. Naruto sighed, this happens every time. Ino practices her jutsu, you and I spar until you get hungry. And Shikamaru just watches clouds. Shikamaru, sitting up, casually remarked, it's still better than training alone. He then shifted his tone, becoming more analytical. If you really want to train, why not work on your jutsu or shuriken skills? That's where you need the most improvement. Feeling embarrassed, Naruto retorted, and what about you? You just sit there. What are you training in? Shikamaru replied with his usual nonchalance, I don't need to train right now. I'm passing my exams as is, and I'm not worried. Just then, Ino's voice called out from the field's edge, what are you guys yammering about? Naruto, oblivious to her annoyance, didn't notice the look on her face, one that both Choji and Shikamaru recognized all too well. Oh, I'm just trying to up my training game. But Shikamaru is too lazy. And Choji is too tired, Naruto began, but was quickly interrupted. Mostly hungry, Choji clarified. Too hungry to keep training with me, Naruto added. While he enjoyed their company, he couldn't shake off a feeling of disconnect. It seemed to him that the trio wasn't taking their training as seriously as he was, lacking a solid goal or a sense of urgency. They appeared content with their progress, confident about passing the graduation exam, a confidence Naruto did not share. He knew his physical abilities were decent, but also realized they were the NLY thing keeping his graduation hopes afloat. INO, having walked up to the boys with her hands on her hips, sighed. Are you really pushing yourselves? You've been at it for hours. I'm amazed Choji lasted 3 hours with you, Naruto. Initially, you tired him out in just one. And my arms are worn out from practicing with moving targets all day. What about Shikamaru? He yawned, replying, I've been observing and offering feedback when needed. INO gave Naruto and Choji a look of disbelief. Naruto smiled, he may not spar with me, but he's really helped improve my form. Thanks, pal. He playfully patted Shikamaru on the back. Just hard enough to unbalance him and cause him to fall. Shikamaru, dusting off his pants, offered a sarcastic thanks. It's been a long day. Let's all go eat. Shikamaru always seemed to be able to reason with whoever he needed to. The smooth talker just knew the right things to say and the perfect way to say them. As the four headed to Ichiraku, with Choji and Naruto debating over the best broth flavor, INO noticed the villagers, glares at Naruto and their confused looks at seeing him with 3 children from prominent clans. She thought to herself, it's been a while since we started hanging out like this. I can't believe I never noticed how tense things get when people see Naruto. It's just unbelievable. If it weren't for him, none of them would be her. Her thoughts were interrupted by Shikamaru. Relax, no one's going to do anything, he said calmly. Shikamaru had been aware of the spiteful stares directed at Naruto since they met. Initially, he thought it was due to Naruto's antics. But soon realized the glares were constant, regardless of the situation. People either despised Naruto or completely ignored him. Shikamaru, adept at connecting the dots, knew something didn't add up. This level of unwarranted animosity towards Naruto puzzled him, and nothing irked him more than an unsolved mystery. They arrived at the ramen shop right before INO could pry into Shikamaru's thoughts and ask how he knew no one would do anything. They each ordered their respective meals, INO's and Shikamaru's portions paling in comparison to the mountain of bowls that began stacking in front of Choji and Naruto. Geez, I've never seen anyone keep up with Choji when it comes to food, INO remarked. Shikamaru nodded, giving a slight hem as he thought back. To the question that boggled his mind prior. He might only be an Uzumaki by name, or so says Iruka-sene, but he sure does share a lot of traits with them. Tons of stamina, an appetite that rivals the Akamichi. Okay, we've tried all the flavors, so are you finally ready to admit that miso with pork is the best? Naruto proclaimed, patting his full stomach with satisfaction. Choji, looking almost offended, retorted, no way. I was right, and you just won't admit it. This is in my blood, Naruto. If there is one thing I know, it is food. Their debate over the superior flavor resumed, as the sun gave way to a star-filled sky. You guys can keep arguing, Shikamaru interjected as he stood up, leaving money on the table for his meal. I need to head home before my mom flips on me for staying out too late. His voice carried a note of genuine apprehension. He waved goodbye and started towards his clan's compound. Choji hurriedly got up to catch up with Shikamaru. Wait up, Shikamaru. Don't make me walk back alone. This was their first group dinner. Typically, their training sessions ended with everyone heading home separately. Shikamaru, Choji, and INO usually walked together, as their homes were on the same side of the village. After bidding farewell to his friends, Naruto paid his bill and settled back, deep in thought. He pondered over the fast-approaching graduation exam, feeling unprepared with only 6 months left. He was determined not to fail again, not to be left behind. This time will be different, he resolved, realizing he now had more than just time and pride at stake. He thought of his new friends. Choji appeared in his mind, a formidable sparring partner who initially outmatched him until Naruto's stamina turned the tide. Then came Shikamaru, the seaman. Gly indifferent boy who had significantly improved Naruto's techniques. Shikamaru, who enjoyed life's simpler pleasures and was deeply concerned about upsetting his mother, a worry that resonated with Naruto. He wished he had someone at home, someone to guide, scold, or praise him, a parent. Ah, that must be nice, he murmured, his voice trailing off, not wanting to voice his deeper feelings. Hey, everything all right? INO's voice broke his reverie. Naruto, startled, turned towards her, surprised she was still there. What are you still doing here? Shouldn't you be heading home with the others? He asked, unsure if his concern was for her safety or that she had overheard his thoughts. I'm fine. I've often walked home alone in the dark. My parents are usually busy, my dad with missions or clan duties. And my mom with the flower shop, often staying late. It's not unusual for me to return to an empty house, INO shared candidly. Oh, Naruto replied, his voice tinged with surprise. I'm sorry to hear that. It must get lonely. INO offered him a reassuring smile. I suppose you know more about loneliness than I do. An awkward silence fell between them, now alone at the food stand. Hey, how about I walk you home? INO suggested, her mind still on the earlier incident. I know Shikamaru said no one would try anything, but I'm certain they wouldn't dare if the Yamanaka clan heiress is with him. Naruto gawked at the offer, first shocked at the idea. He let out a laugh, you know I'll be alright. Besides, shouldn't the guy usually be the one walking the girl home? INO did her best to resist the urge to blush. What does that have to do with anything? We're both ninja in training. You know I can handle myself. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the remark. Oh, so are you saying I can't handle myself? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. INO was torn between embarrassed and annoyed. Why does he choose now of all times to start using his brain? I wonder what her deal is tonight. Naruto thought before dismissing the issue. Sure, you can walk me home, just don't judge alright. What do you mean by that? Let's just say I don't exactly live in the nicest area. The two walked in mostly silence through the dimly lit streets of Konoha. Naruto casually walking with his hands behind his head, INO with her hands in her pocket. There wasn't much to say. They were friendly with each other. Sure, but their relationship hadn't progressed much farther than just a kindling between comrades. INO made sure to take a look around them as they walked, seeing. Gee, how the different villagers looked in their direction. Most civilians looked with animosity. Daggers for eyes or nose pointed in other directions. Some rushed their children inside, others remained hushed and wouldn't move a muscle. They must think he is the fox spirit itself. This is so frustrating, seeing them act like this. The only ones who looked in without malice were the elderly or ninja with chunin rank or higher. It looked like some people knew the truth, others just made bold assumptions. Sadly, the reactions of those people were that of either indifference or pity. She knew. Neither of which was what Naruto was aiming for. INO quickly picked up that Naruto's antics and loud-mouthed behavior was all just a show for attention. While he was truly a knucklehead, riddled with ADHD and unrivaled energy. When he let the mask skip, he wasn't all that mischievous or rude. He never tried to pick fights when they trained, and he wouldn't just go running his mouth for no reason either. Alright, we're here, Naruto said as he turned to his door, digging his keys out of his pockets before unlocking his door. INO couldn't hold back her shocked expression. Oh, it's her words stumbling from her mouth. It's not the worst, she said, trying to sound somewhat enthusiastic. It's all right, I know it's pretty shabby. But, it's the only place I've known to call home. The one thing that's always waiting for me. Turning from his door, he looked at the dumbfounded girl in front of him. Wow, she looks kinda pretty, Naruto stared, lost in thought for a moment before shaking his head. A light blush making its way to his cheeks. Stop that. You like Sakura. Is something wrong? You've been staring at me for a minute, aren't you going to go and see? Before she could even finish the sentence, INO found herself wrapped in a very tight hug. Thank you, Naruto said, and just as fast as he hugged the girl he let go, sheepishly rubbing the back of his head. INO couldn't fight the blush on her face. For what exactly are you thanking me for? She questioned. Naruto's grin sparkled. Everything, you know. You set me up with a training group, and I feel like I have some amazing friends now. Not just peers, but actual friends. And on top of that, no one's ever walked me home before. It was nice. No one's ever walked you home before. INO wondered aloud, completely skipping over the first half of the boy's appreciation. Well, not since I was little. Old man Hokage would walk me around when I was younger, but a while back he said that he was getting too busy with paperwork and I was old enough to handle things on my own. The Hokage wasn't wrong with that statement. He had coddled Naruto until he turned 6, an age that the Hokage knew so many to be self-sufficient at. From the ages between 6 and 8, the Hokage slowly weaned off taking care of Naruto, making sure that the boy would be self-sufficient. Don't sweat it, Ino frowned at the sentiment. I can't be. He's been on his own like that for so long. Really though, thank you. Next time I'll make sure to return the favor and walk you home. If you say so, Ino replied casually, hiding the fact that the offer made her happy. Please make it home safe, Naruto said before slipping into his apartment. The door closed, leaving a flustered Ino standing under the stars. She made her way home, eyes toward the Hokage mountain as she walked. He really isn't all that bad. Time crawled on. Academy lessons, practices, jutsu training. All the normal things to be expected from ninja in training. Naruto, in his time practicing with Ino, Choji, and Shikamaru, learned to not only hone his physical abilities to a higher degree, but had also picked up decent shuriken technique, for a rookie that is. His time in class wasn't as fruitful. He was still unable to create clones of himself, a technique that was incessantly reminding him he was on the brink of not passing the final exam. On top of that, his academic work itself was lagging behind. No matter how hard he tried to focus, he just couldn't bring himself to sit still and study things like history and politics. Naruto enjoyed the training sessions that he had with his friends. It was not an everyday occurrence, but the 2 to 3 times a week had been extremely helpful. The bi-weekly dinners as a group were also a nice addition to the boy's routine. Those weren't the only changes to his routines. Once a week he would spend his time after training helping with Ino's family shop, after hours to clean up and prepare orders if needed. The experience wasn't something that inherently helped him with his training to become stronger, but it was something that he looked forward to. He enjoyed the time spent there, able to chat with Ino. In the short time they had known each other, they grew closer. Naruto felt confident that he had another person in his life that he could trust, aside from Iruka and the Hokage. He learned all sorts of things about the girl. Like how she was quick to temper, had a very specific way with how she wanted things done, and that her favorite flower was the purple bush clover. The same flower that her clan burnished as a crest. Eventually it became time for the day of the final exam. Naruto knew he bombed the written portion, and while his shuriken and taijutsu scores weren't bad, it all came down to the jutsu demonstration. He walked up as his name was called, nervous sweat already forming on his brow. He looked back at his 3 friends, eyes locking with Ino's for a moment before she gave him a slight nod and smile. You got this, Naruto, she thought. One puff of smoke and pathetic clone later, she couldn't help but feel the pit in her gut. Or maybe not, although she could see the pain. In his eyes she couldn't bring herself to look at him. She knew more than anyone else just how hard she trained. The class continued, students one by one going up and failing or passing. Ino tried sing some encouraging words to Naruto as he walked back, the boy responding in his usual fashion whenever he felt distraught, masking up and giving a sheepish smile, reassuring that nothing was going to stop him from his dream of becoming Hokage. Whether that reassurance was for himself or for Ino, no one knew. One eventful night later, Naruto still couldn't believe what had just happened. He had time to decompress his thoughts after bringing Iruka to the hospital and returning the sacred scroll. The revelations of his Jinchuriki status came as a shock to the boy. He laid in his bed for hours, just thinking things over repetitively. After a long night of meditation, things started to finally make sense. There was no wonder why he was able to make hundreds of shadow clones but not a single good regular clone. He just had too much chakra, unbound and unrefined. He always struggled with chakra control techniques, like trying to make a leaf stick to his forehead. This was also the reason the villagers held such ill intent toward him. It was also the reason why many of the ninja in the village were mostly neutral to him, often just scolding him whenever he pestered them with his pranks and antics. It made sense why he never saw any of his friends' parents scolding them for talking to him, or even making sure they didn't get close. His friends. Naruto thought about his time with them all so fondly. If it weren't for the fact Ino had invited him along, he would have possibly never gotten so close to the trio. Ino, the girl who had somehow tangled herself up into his life, starting with that one incident at the academy. In that moment his body shot up in bed and his eyes widened. There's no way, right? He thought back to their first real conversation they shared. The Girl had explicitly mentioned she was in his mindscape. When she was first woken up she was terrified, shaking even. He knew he had some horrible memories, but what if she didn't just see memories? The gears in his head were turning, drawing him toward a thought that he just couldn't bring himself to believe. Just how long did she know? INO waved goodbye to her parents as she exited her house. Usually she would be leaving the house unattended, but today was a special occasion. Both of her parents wanted to make sure to see her off on her first real day as a ninja. She closed the door and began walking down the street, unable to help herself from feeling bad about what had happened the day before. Poor Naruto. Please don't give up. Speak of the devil and he will appear. The moment she stepped foot from her compound and turned the corner she saw him waiting, back perched up on a fence and looking toward the Hokage mountain. INO noticed the shining Hittite on his head and rushed over, confused but nevertheless happy. She wrapped her arms around him in a friendly hug, squeezing him. I knew you could do it. She let go and looked up, and instead of seeing the happy-go-lucky EXPR Eshin she was expecting, her eyes met the look of sadness. INO, I need to ask you something, and you have to promise me you won't lie. Naruto's words left a sour feeling in his mouth as he said them. What's going on? What do you mean? INO asked, genuinely confused. Just promise, okay, I promise. With a deep breath and an even deeper exhale Naruto began, how long have you known about my condition? The extra emphasis at the end made no room for INO to find confusion. The silence told him everything he needed to know. So you did know. Naruto INO was falling over her own words. I couldn't say anything. Before she could continue to explain he cut her off. I can't believe this. At this point the blonde wanted nothing more than to just storm off, and that's exactly what he would have done if INO hadn't grabbed his arm. So what? She quietly yelled at him, yeah, I knew about your condition. What am I supposed to do, just tell you? Yes, he deadpanned. You realize life isn't just that simple. There's consequences to everything, and I had to choose between promising I wouldn't tell you or risking having my memory wiped if the information got out. Oh, so everyone gets to know except me. How is that fair? No, not everyone. As far as I know, me and you are the only ones from the class that know. Naruto stood for a moment, still hurt by the realization that his entire time INO knew about the nine-tailed fox yet said nothing. I was hoping it wouldn't be true. That you knew about it. This whole thing makes me feel like it's the only reason you even talk to me. Excuse me. INO was shaken by his words. Before you entered my mind I was invisible to you just like everyone else. I don't even know what to think anymore. He began walking away, not toward the academy. Naruto, wait. Where are you going? We aren't done yet. INO said, taking a step to follow him. The boy turned and shook his head. I need to go somewhere before the academy. You're right though, we're not talking yet. I just need some time to think, and you need to not be late. He saw the look on her face. As upset as he was, he just couldn't stay mad at the people he considered his friends. For the record, I don't hate you for keeping it a secret. But you can't blame me for feeling hurt. Naruto began walking, opposite direction of his blonde counterpart. With that part out of his mind he could focus solely on the current task at hand. It's time to make a very important visit. A red and white robed elderly man sat at his desk smoking from an old wooden pipe. In front of him sat bounds of paperwork stacked so tall that it was a miracle the paper wasn't toppling over. Around the room sat various other individuals, all doing other mundane and menial tasks. Some were cleaning the facility. Others were also engrossed in paperwork duties. Behind the old man were massive windows that reached wall to wall. Through the glass one could peer out over the entire village. The city-goers looked as if they were ants from that distance. Across the room were two doors, massive just like their window counterparts. On each side of the door stood two men standing at high alert, both in traditional Jonin garb. One of the high-ranking ninja yawned, his outstretched palm covering the majority of his face. You feel that? The other Jonin gave a light chuckle. Oh yeah, he's moving quick today. Yup. Only a matter of time until, before he could finish his sentence, the yawning Jonin raised his left arm up to prevent the double door from striking him in the face. Naruto shows up. The other Jonin, now stepping forward and grabbing the orange-clad boy by the back of his coat, raised a question to the man at the desk by the windows. Lord Hokage, it seems you have a visitor. Is now a good time or should? I don't care if it is a good time or not. Naruto yelled, unzipping his jacket and breaking from the man's grasp. He ran to the desk of the Hokage and slammed his hands on it, causing the mountain of paperwork to begin wobbling. You have some explaining to do, old man. He yelled, pointing an accusatory finger at the man in question. Hiruzen sighed, letting out a deep puff of smoke from his mouth. I suppose you're right, this cannot be put off forever now, can it? But, as you can see, I am a bit swamped with paperwork at the moment. I could come see you afterwards. Naruto glared and let a devious smile crawl onto his face. Oh, this paperwork right here. You know, I can get pretty angry, old man. He finished his statement with a little pound on the table, causing the towers of paperwork to wobble even more. It would be really unfortunate if I don't know, got so upset I started punching and banging everything around me. The Hokage could feel a massive sweat drop from his head. All right, you win. With a wave of his hand he made an order to dismiss everyone from his room. It is best we have this conversation in private. He brought his hands together in a clasp and within moments the door had clicked shut, and the windows were now black. The only source of light in the room now being a few select places in which torches were lit. Whoa, how did you do that? Naruto asked, amazed at the display of power he just witnessed. He knew jutsu could be used for almost anything, but that looked like magic. Seals and exceptional chakra control, the old man chortled, smiling at the fact he could still amaze the youths of his village. You don't get to become Hokage by just outliving your competitors. I've got quite the repertoire of abilities. Not to mention the accolades I've managed to accomplish. He let out a hearty laugh. But that's a conversation for another day. I'm sure you didn't come all the way here just to hear some old war stories. Naruto shook his head. You're right, what I want are answers. A serious look casted itself upon the boy. How come you never told me about the fox? Hiruzen's face scrunched. How could I? You're just a boy. You weren't ready for such news. You were meant to have a normal life. You know better than anyone that the life I had was far from normal. Naruto almost slammed the desk. His emotions now starting to get the better of him. The way I struggled, the way everyone looks at me, the way I had to go through life and have no idea why. Well, now I know why they hate me, but I want to know why me. Hiruzen stepped over to the boy, placing a hand onto his shoulder. I'm sorry Naruto, but you were the only option that the fourth Hokage had. Naruto's eyes widened in realization. His hero, his idol, had been the one to mark him with this curse. The powers of the fox are strong, and he needed a newborn vessel that could handle such a beast. You may not know your parents, but they were incredibly strong shinobi. Minato knew that you would be strong enough to hold the fox at bay, and he was right. Following this, Hiruzen squatted down to be at eye level with Naruto. You are very strong. And I know your parents would be proud of you. Following this explanation, Hiruzen took Naruto into a tight hug. Naruto couldn't hold back the tears that were creeping into his eyes. Information overload was an understatement. So you knew them, my parents, I mean. Hiruzen squeezed a little tight before letting go. Yes, they were incredibly powerful assets to this village. On the night you were conceived they made me promise two things before they passed. After saying this he turned away and looked toward the black abyss that was once the windows of his office. First, do not inform you of the fox spirit until you were appointed to the rank of Genin. Second, do not reveal their names to you until you are appointed to the rank of Chunin. His face contorted, purposefully facing away from the blonde. Half-truths may have been somewhat true, but they were also half false. The third did not take kindly to being made to lie, but he had to do what he felt was best for the boy. Naruto was at a loss for words. I just don't understand. Why keep this all from me? I feel so conflicted. I trusted you like a grandfather. I never expected you to have been keeping all this from me. Hiruzen turned around, walking toward the boy once again. Let me make this up to you. I know I cannot fix the mistakes of the past, but the last thing I want is for our relationship to be ruined because of this. I'll show you just how to use that new jutsu of yours, and a few of my own if you behave during training. Naruto stood, mouth agape. Wait, how did you know about my new jutsu? The boy's mind was easily distracted. On top of that, the prospect of having even a single training session with the Hokage was something he just couldn't pass up. "Oh Naruto my boy," he leaned in closely. A serious and grave expression making it to his face, and with an eerie monotone voice he uttered, "I see all that happens in my village." Naruto gulped. Maybe I shouldn't have stolen that scroll after all. Due to unforeseen circumstances the team placements shall be delayed by 1 week. Please be sure to do any and all preparation before Monday. Ino stood in disbelief of what she had just read. What? Oh, it says that. Choji, I can read. I am just surprised. Her tone was calm, albeit very confused. Ino's mind couldn't help but wander back to her encounter this morning. There's no way he knew about this, right? I wonder if he was somehow involved in this being delayed, or what if the team formations are being delayed because he passed? What if, the girl's mind continued to trail off into different possibilities and explanations. Hey, everything all right? Choji asked, breaking her out of her stupor by waving a hand in front of her face. Ino shook her head and cleared her thoughts. I'm fine, just lost in thought. Why? I don't know, you just looked lost. You didn't even say goodbye to Shikamaru, Choji said pointedly. Ino looked to her right. Here a specific spiky-haired individual used to be standing. She turned, and nearly jumped when she saw him just leisurely walking away. Hey, where are you going? She yelled as she ran toward him, Choji following suit. I have some things I need to take care of. The boy's tone was just as lazy as his stride. Ino scoffed. Oh, like watching clouds or playing board games. Shikamaru shook his head, muttering a few words underneath his breath that Ino couldn't hear clearly. She didn't need to, she figured it was probably something along the lines of, troublesome woman. He stopped, causing Ino to bump into him. Then Choi to bump into Ino. Glancing over his shoulder he carried a look of seriousness, his tone drastically shifting to match the look on his face. I have to see someone, it is very important that I take care of this. Quote. Ino stood blinking a few times in shock. The seriousness of his tone, the words he carried with him. It was all too reminiscent of another blonde. She crossed her arms. Well, I also have something important to do. After making sure she got the last word Ino stormed off, her pride too bold for her to not be the first one of the trio to leave the building. Choji stood for a few moments before yawning and taking out a bag of chips. 1 more week of preparation means 1 more week of food. God is real. Shikamaru on the other hand was already king his way out of the academy and toward the village library. He could not help but shake the feeling in his gut that something just wasn't right. He had never heard of a delay in team formations in the past. This could only point to one of a few possibilities. Either there were issues with the Jonin instructors, or there were issues with the graduates. Shikamaru had been well aware of Konoha's 3-man squad formation in the past. Wondering if that was potentially the issue he began recounting his classmates who had passed. There were 26 kids who had passed the exam, meaning the class was 1 short of having the proper amount of graduates. On top of that, there was still the issue that Naruto posed. Shikamaru still could not put a finger on why the boy was subject to immense disdain. Not to mention his wild stamina and chakra pool, ability to somehow never sustain any injuries for longer than a few hours. Something just wasn't right with him. Shikamaru finally arrived at the doors to the village library. A large ocular building with double doors at the entrance. The seal of the Land of Fire adorned the double doors in the center, acting as a means to keep the door shut. The orange and brick building welcomed ninja and civilian entry, although to gain access to the ninja archives one would have to bypass a coded door which involved having a ninja in a leaf headband. With Finn Ally having achieved his graduation, Shikamaru now had entrance to that part of the library. Or so he thought. His leaf headband scan was accepted, although his ninja id was not. He pondered the lock in front of him. A blaring red keypad with the words, D, running across it from left to right. Behind him he could hear a slight laugh. Looks like someone's antsy about reading up on those confidential archives. Shikamaru turned to see a man with a leaf headband and Chunin garb. He was of average build, short brown buzzed hair and eyes to match. A scar ran down from his left ear all the way to his chin. Graduation is today. Guess you didn't get a chance to meet with your sensei yet, did ya? Else you'd know about your current limbo rank. Shikamaru looked at the man and wasn't sure if he should feign ignorance to try and get more information, or to just be honest. With this notion of a limbo rank, and that his access code was denied, Shikamaru began to piece together that perhaps there was yet another test in store. Actually, our team formations were delayed by a week. I wanted to go read up on some information, but it looks like that'll be a problem, won't it? The man rubbed his chin, thinking out loud. I guess after the trouble that the boy caused, it's only expected for the placements to be delayed. Shikamaru couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. The boy, that wouldn't happen to be a blonde kid with whisker marks, would it? The man froze in his shoes, a detail that Shikamaru would not miss. Maybe I shouldn't have said, the man cursed quietly under his breath. Before putting his hands together and disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Naruto, just what did you get yourself into this time? Shikamaru thought as he made his way out of the library. So you're saying if I use a shadow clone to train it'll help me with figuring things out faster? Naruto asked, eyes widened in shock. Precisely. This feature of the ability is a blessing and a curse. You see, the longer a clone lives, the more memories that it has. If a clone lives for 8 hours, you will receive 8 hours of mental information at once. Multiple this by 100 and now you've mentally exhausted yourself by roughly a month. The incoming headache would be unpleasant, to say the least. The Kage stroked his chin as he explained the technique. The two were still in the room, Hiruzen multitasking. Explaining to Naruto and catching up on paperwork. How come I didn't get a crazy headache last night then? I definitely made 1,000 clones, maybe more. Naruto pondered aloud. Hiruzen stamped another page. I would assume it is a combination of a few factors. For one, your clones will come into existence as exact clones of you. Everyone had the exact same thought. Stop Mizuki. On top of that, the clones lasted for maybe 5 minutes total before you were finished. All you saw was Mizuki and a bunch of clones, similar to the clones themselves. The memories you received most likely just blended in with the ones you made. I also wouldn't be surprised if your little fox friend's chakra helped with ensuring you didn't take a ton of mental damage. Naruto processed the information before snapping his fingers and running over to the Hokage desk. Wait, the wait continued for almost a minute before the boy continued. Couldn't you just use shadow clones to do your paperwork? That would free up so much time, and then you would be able to relax, and… Hiruzen raised a hand at the notion, stopping the boy. Naruto, every Kage knows that you should ever use shadow clones to do your paperwork. I've seen it before, and the results, they weren't exactly the best. Naruto pouted, his idea of getting more training time with his grandfather figure vanishing. Okay. Well, maybe just for today you can use them. I'm still expecting some training time. The Hokage let out a laugh before agreeing. Just 1 day of shadow clone paperwork shouldn't hurt, too much, right? He put together the cross-hand sign, a clone of himself popping into existence. The clone pulled out a pipe, lit it, then began doing work. The real Hiruzen walked over to behind Naruto, while dispelling the seals in the room. The door clicked and swung open, the window now let in light. Before anyone would notice, Hiruzen grabbed Naruto by the back of his coat and used the body flicker jutsu, wisping the two away, leaving behind a swirl of leaves. Naruto fell to his knees, nearly vomiting from the rapid movement. He gasped for air and looked around. What just happened? The Hokage chucked. That's just a body flicker jutsu. Something that you will learn, in time. The boy looked out beyond the field in amazement. The Hokage tower could be seen a massive distance away. Wow, we traveled so far so fast. How can I learn this? It would be so awesome to move fast like that, I would be unstoppable. Hiruzen patted Naruto on the head, one step at a time, young Naruto. While the body flicker jutsu is great for traveling distances, actually using it in combat is an achievement not many can attest to. I can only think of a couple people who have been successful in greatly modifying their combat abilities with chakra. Using too much or too little can create massive issues for the user. Having incredible chakra control is key, something that you don't have. Naruto frowned at the idea of his chakra control being bad. Oh come on, my control isn't that bad, right? Hiruzen combated him, an individual who is capable of making 1,000 shadow clones, but not even making a single regular clone correctly. Has immense chakra that they are incapable of controlling. Don't think of this as a fatal flaw, Naruto, it just means that it would be best for you to focus on techniques that require pouring in a ton of chakra, control be damned. The old man knew exactly what to say to cheer the boy up. Now, let me show you a thing or two. Knock 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 knock. Silence. The knocking continued, louder than before. Once again, silence. Ino sighed and slouched down, her back against the door. She figured that it was only a matter of time until he returned. The sun kept moving, but still no Naruto. I guess it was a long shot. She looked at the door in front of her. Locked, no answer. She was stuck outside, in an area of the village that she very much did not want to be stuck in alone. Well, we are ninjas now, guess someone should test his home defenses. A devious thought hatched in her mind as a smirk slowly tugged at the corner of her lips. She casually took out a pin from her hair and began fidgeting with the lock on his door. Not even ninja sealed, come on, this is just too easy. A few fidgets later and then a click and the door was open. Ino let herself in and immediately her face became pale. Oh God, he really needs to open a window. With her statement said, she walked over to the kitchen, just to stop in her tracks when she stepped on his kitchen floor. I am very surprised this floor is not as sticky as a toddler's hands. She took a better look around the apartment. Considering Naruto was just barely a teenager living on his own, it was fairly clean. Stuffy. And it was obvious that nothing had been wiped in a while, but pretty good condition all things considered. Ino sighed, I just hope this works. Gotta make it up to him, and maybe he'll actually talk to me after. Is it extremely weird to break into a friend's apartment in order to try and get them to talk to you? Probably. Even still, Ino figured Naruto would appreciate the gesture. Considering how much of an oddball he is. More time passed, the sun setting at this point. Ino sighed as she stepped out of the apartment, locking it in the process, only to look into the dark eyes of Shikamaru. What are you doing here? Ino stammered, face red from the embarrassment of being caught. I knew I should have used the window to leave. Shikamaru countered, I feel like I could ask you the same thing. You do realize this is Naruto's apartment. Ino continued to sputter sounds for a few moments, nothing of comprehension. Whatever, I just came here to ask him a few things. And give him a warning about team placements. Ino took the opportunity to change the subject. What do you mean, warning about team placements? Shikamaru let out a deep sigh, it's a drag, but out there is another test for us to take. I figured I'd warn Naruto, considering one more failure in the academy and he's gone for good. Ino smiled at the gesture, before realizing this also meant she was potentially at risk too. She grabbed Shikamaru by the collar, another test. The sun was setting on three individuals standing near a stone between a treeline and a lake. The stone had a circular platform with the center jutting out on top. The hair of one of the men was similar to the center of the stone, a gravity-defying silver. His face was mostly covered by a mask that went up from his bodysuit all the way to his nose. Next to him was Naruto and then the Hokage. You did very well today, Naruto. I'm very proud of you, Hiruzen said, hand ruffling Naruto's hair. The silver hair. Man stayed silent and Naruto was holding back tears. On this stone there are the names of the fallen heroes of our village. We have one at every training ground, a symbol that reminds us to never stop fighting. These shinobi protected you and everyone else in the next generation. They gave everything they had, and one day this village might just call upon you to do the same. Naruto choked on his words. He hugged the old man, thanking him. I'm sorry about earlier, I just couldn't believe everything you know. I should have guessed there was some reason you never told me. Hiruzen hugged him back, maybe I should have told you before. But that's all in the past now. The two stood in silence for a moment before the silver-haired man disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, I guess it is getting late. Almost as if on cue his stomach began to rumble, man, we've been out here so long I almost forgot to eat. The Hokage laughed. You're right, it might be time. One of us returns to work and the other grabs food. The Hokage then made a hand sign and disappeared in a swirl of leaves, leaving behind a few bills in his wake. Naruto stood, eye twitching at somehow being the last one to leave. Well, at least he's paying. He snatched the money from the ground and began walking toward his favorite place. The sun was just barely going down now, he would have plenty of time before they closed. Even with the extra time he couldn't contain his excitement, and within moments he was running full speed to Ichiraku. He stumbled in, still covered dirt from his TRA. Ining and with beads of sweat running down the side of his face. "Hey old man, I'll have the usual, but make it 3 bowls this time." A big smile grew on his face. He couldn't help but think about how nicely the day had turned out. Despite how upset he was in the morning, his mind replayed the events, recalling his conversation with INO. He felt bad for being so cold to her. His feelings were definitely displaced. Sure, at first her reason for being nice to me might have been because of that, but it isn't like she didn't help me out a ton. Without her I probably wouldn't have gotten nearly as close to Shikamaru and Choji. Plus, helping out with her shop part-time really did help me with money. After finding out about the fox it would have been way easier for her to just ignore me or even hate me like everyone else. And she didn't. She did the opposite. I'm so dumb. By this point the boy had completely shielded his eyes with the table, embarrassed and feeling awful about his previous actions. "I figured you'd be here." A soft-spoken voice broke him out of his thoughts. "Oh great, now I'm hearing voices. I could have sworn that sounded exactly like INO. If you don't wanna talk to me then that's fine, but at least listen. Shikamaru warned me of something and I gotta warn you." INO couldn't believe she was watching Naruto not eat the steaming bowl of ramen in front of him. Something was definitely off. "Wait, that is INO." Naruto flipped his head up and saw the blonde, a sheepish smile coming to his face. "Oh hey, I didn't realize you were here. I was thinking about a lot of stuff, and, He couldn't find the words to say. A silence drifted between the two before Naruto's gulp sliced through it. "I just wanna say I'm sorry for how I acted this morning." INO blinked a few times in surprise. That was easy. Naruto began to vent word vomit, releasing all of his concerns and filling INO in on what had happened earlier in the day. How he couldn't believe the news he heard. And then how heartbroken he had felt when he realized that the Hokage knew about everything and never told him. How bad it made him feel that he lashed out at a friend who helped him. Everything he could think just came right out his mouth. It was easy to talk to INO like this, she already knew the secrets he couldn't tell anyone else. "That's everything, basically. I don't know why I did BU. I just felt like I owed you an explanation. But now that's it, everything is off my chest. I got no more secrets, and now that I know about that thing we have no more secrets between us and we can go back to being friends. Like normal, you know." His run-on sentences were tough to follow, but INO knew there was still just one more thing that had to be said. "I'd like for everything to go back to normal. But there's something I should probably tell you first." Her face now red in embarrassment. Naruto looked up, ramen in mouth. What is it?" "I sort of broke into your apartment earlier." Ellipsis. You're kidding, right?" Amidst the lively sounds of Konoha's bustling streets, 2 blondes found solace at a ramen shop. Several piles of stacked bowls were placed next to one of the blondes, while the other was still savoring her first bowl. It was slightly past the usual rush hour, with not many people in the vicinity. The pair at the table was blissfully ignored by those in and around the shop. The few people in the area and their subsequent chatter mostly drowned out the interaction between the two. Even still, INO's panicked voice could still be heard as she neared the end of her rant. "And on top of the placements for teams being postponed, we still have another test. Like, come on, we have been training for so long and already passed a test. They can't really do that to us, right?" And, she took a sharp breath, her cheeks flaring a red stronger than the sun. "I am just so really incredibly sorry about the apartment thing. Okay, I shouldn't have done that, and I know it was a breach of privacy. And it was wrong, and I'm so sorry." Naruto was usually never one to be so quiet for so long. The scenario was making it incredibly uncomfortable for INO. The girl currently shifted in her seat, awaiting his reply. It's always better when it's on someone else, am I right?" Naruto exclaimed as he slammed his final bowl down, patting his newly full stomach. INO nearly screamed, trying not to slam the table. Her hand came down next to the half-filled bowl on the table. She did not have her usual appetite, the stress of the day eating her instead. "Did you even hear a word I said?" Her tone radiated annoyance. She had just poured her heart out, About the exams, the delays, and her humiliation over the break-in, and he was just sitting there patting his stomach. She felt the embarrassment burning on her face like a scarlet letter. She was trying to come clean and felt like he wasn't even listening. Yeah, Naruto waved a nonchalant hand, seemingly dismissing any sort of importance in the topics. Teams are Monday, there is probably another test, and you broke into my apartment, he emphasized a few of his words. I still can't believe you went and did all that. I said we'd continue our chat, didn't I? Ino gave his shoulder a light smack. She was never one to enjoy being on the receiving end of a tease, but she let this one slide. She turned, crossing her arms and not giving him the satisfaction of seeing the grin on her face. I don't really know if you did. The smile faded, arms dropped, and she turned back toward the boy. Anyways, I'd rather just put the secrets behind us. Naruto returned her physical gesture, now facing her. From here on out, no more secrets, alright? Naruto shot his signature grin and raised his hand, pinky up. Alright, I promise. I give you my word, and you know I never go back on my word. Belly. Before he could even finish making the pinky promise gesture with his hand, Ino interjected, clasping his pinky into hers. He could see the seriousness in her light green eyes. Her voice cut through, as soft and genuine as her smile. I believe it. Ino couldn't help but become a bit enamored by the moment. The feelings of guilt and anxiety that racked in her mind all day were finally melting away. In that moment it felt like time had stopped and she could finally breathe fresh air again. No longer drowning in the sea that was her own emotions. The memories of the past year had weighed on the girl. Her friendship with the blonde may not have been as long-lasting as some of her other friendships. But going through her roster of friends, his friendship felt the most genuine. Ino had, of course, grown up alongside Shikamaru and Choji. The trio raised to be close, with expectations that the heirs of the Yamanaka, Nara, and Akamichi clans would stay tight-knit. The expectation that each of them would eventually take their spot at the top of their respective clan meant that each of them were tied to being close. There was the expectation that they would become friends, and that they must remain friends. She didn't like having to live life through the lens of the expectation of others. But it was the unfortunate reality of not just being in a clan, but being the heiress as well. Thankfully the two boys she had grown up with were wonderful friends. Over time they naturally became like brothers. She then began recounting the girls in her class that she had once been friends with. Ino could then see the image of Sakura flashing in her mind as she thought of her old friends. The pair were once close, best friends even. She had inserted herself into Sakura's life, deciding to help the girl who had been bullied. She would have still been friends with Sakura if it was not for their rivalry over Sasuke. The boy put a wedge between most of the friendships between the girls in the class. He just had that effect, and Ino was not immune. Her list of friends had dwindled down a few years ago nearly instantaneously. There were a few peers that would be friendly, sure, but Ino always had a sinking feeling that their relationship was transactional. She was brought up to read people. And she knew that most of these people around her could easily care less if it was not for her status as clan heiress. Naruto was different. He filled in that void of friendship that Sakura left. One that Ino felt she could genuinely have some level of trust with. Their friendship had been going strong for the past year, reminding her just how much she missed having someone who would crack back and be on her level. As she puts it, losing Sakura as a friend hurt in a way, but it was also a mutual understanding. They had their goals and knew what it would mean for their friendship to pursue those goals. She knew that this time she would be the one to blame if she were to lose another close friend. So, Naruto broke the silence, pulling his hand away. The moment between them was a bit uncomfortable and foreign to him. He did not know why the girl looked so lost in thought. He found it impossible to not notice how soft Ino's hands are. It was odd, considering how much training he saw her do. I wonder how she manages that. His thought trailed off as he looked toward his own hands. Already calloused over and even crackling in a few spots. His mind bounced around in thought, jumping from idea to idea. Before he realized it, a small flush of red tinted his cheeks as the idea of holding soft hands came to mind, particularly hands from a specific pink-haired girl. He jolted his hands to his lap and stiffened in an attempt to compose himself. Ino caught the moment and couldn't help but wonder, what was that about? The sudden movement was odd, but she decided against pushing. Gee, her luck, she was still riding the gratefulness in easing the tension of their friendship. She cut their silence short. So, we're okay then, still friends. The statement came out as more of a question. As much as it was meant to be reassuring, it still held a tinge of worry. Reassurance would help. Naruto shot a grin. Yup, still friends. He got up, waving a hand to signal INO to follow. Come on, we should get going. It's starting to get dark. INO complied with his request, taking a moment to look around. She realized that in her distracted ramblings, she hadn't noticed the bustling streets had mostly quieted down. Reaching a lull before the night crowd arrived, Naruto thanked Kyuki for the amazing food as always, all the while ensuring he left a generous tip. The gesture was kind and peculiar. A 50% tip wasn't something to scoff at. Considering the amount of food they had consumed, it would definitely put a dent in Naruto's wallet. Once the pair had walked off just far enough out of earshot, INO couldn't resist prying. What's with the tip? It seemed a bit high. Did you carry an extra zero or something? I know math isn't your strong suit. She teased, trying to lie. Tend the mood and restore their usual dynamic. Naruto responded in his usual earnest and honest manner, not even acknowledging the jab. I owe them a lot. They used to feed me when I was struggling for food. They did it for free too. They always told me I could pay them back once I became Hokage. Sure, I'm not there yet, but I'm going to make sure I pay back every single cent I owe. Even though he was serious, his smile remained. His hands rested clasped behind his head as he walked in parallel with INO, the Hokage monument in view of them both. INO was now the recipient of a red assault on her cheeks. Feeling once again like a jerk who had pried too much. Oh, I'm sorry before she could finish, the boy cut her off. What are you apologizing for? We said no more secrets, right? He turned to look at her. Beyond her face, he could see the sunset dawning in the village. The oranges and streaks of purple dotted the nearly night sky. Her face still expressed that lingering worry, but he paid no mind. We already made up. She probably has something else bothering her. I'm not gonna pry, she looks exhausted as it is. INO composed herself. That doesn't mean you have to tell me everything. Being honest doesn't mean being completely forthright all of the time. You get to have your own personal thoughts and secrets. I just meant no secrets between us. She turned to him, her bod. Why now positioning him perfectly so that his head would align with the end of the Hokage monument. The image looked ideal, like he could slot perfectly in as the fifth. It would be fitting up there. His stubborn attitude and refusal to back down were destined for greatness. INO was convinced of that fact without a doubt. She saw just how hard he trained, harder than anyone she has ever seen before. Even if her point of reference were just a couple of lazy boys. I can't believe I genuinely believe you may one day really be up there. Forthright. Naruto's face scrunched in confusion. Just like that, INO snapped back to reality and face-palmed. What was I thinking? She sighed internally. It means you don't have to share every single detail with me. That internal sigh escaped through her fingers before her hand fell to her side. He can be so clueless sometimes. Oh okay, I see what you're saying. I get to keep my personal secrets and stuff. Naruto was always one for stating the obvious. Yes, now let's go. It's getting late and I'm tired. INO was always one for being able to subtly change topics whenever she was getting annoyed. After some walking together toward Yamanaka compound, she decided to probe at him. Who would you like to have on your team? Naruto kept his eyes toward the sky, the sun now having been fully replaced by the moon. That's tough. Obviously I'd like to have two of Choji. Shikamaru, or you. I don't think that's going to happen though. INO shot a side eye. Oh, and why's that? She knew, of course, but could not help herself from trying to see the boy's reasoning. Well, INO Shikacho has been around for almost the entirety of the village by this point. Your clans stay tight-knit, they even coordinate when to have children to keep that trio alive. The team's synergy is just too good to pass up. I can't even begin to imagine the clan political fighting that would happen if I somehow broke up the trio. From both aspects I'm disqualified. He put a finger on his chin to continue his thought. INO stared, momentarily stunned. Seriously, I didn't expect you to be this insightful. You barely pay attention in class, how do you even know the first thing about clan politics? Naruto let out a sheepish chuckle. Hey, this stuff is important. Combat synergy is really the only part of teaming that I cared to put attention toward. But a future Hokage knows he'll have to keep the clans happy. I might have also listened in pride during some of the old man's shifts. The boy was full of surprises. That makes a surprising amount of sense. Especially coming from you. There were Ino's thorns again. Hey, I can be smart. Anyways, with the three of you guys disqualified, well, I would like to be on a team with Sakura. A smile crept onto his face. We could get close, and maybe I could even get a date, hee. The smile quickly became one of devious foxiness. Oh, you would love that, wouldn't you? You're really still enamored by her, aren't you? Such a shame that you have the worst taste in women. The joking tone dropped from Ino. This time she was serious. I don't get what you see in Billboard brow. But, hey, Hervo. Ice returned to one of cutesy hopefulness. If you somehow manage to win her over, then that would leave Sasuke all to me. Naruto grimaced. Okay, you can't seriously be criticizing who I like when you're so in love with Sasuke. At least I can get Sakura to talk to me. All he has ever done for you is brood in your direction. Ino was having none of that. There are obviously undertones of sublimina. Love in that brooding when it is in my direction. Her diction was once again going right over the head of Naruto. Sure, whatever that means. As long as I don't get stuck with him, I'll be happy. If I can get paired up with Sakura too, that would be a great bonus. And I guess I could really take anyone else at that point. Kiba would be a fun training buddy. He might be a jerk, but man, can he punch, and at least he'd talk to me. Shino is way too quiet and creepy. Speaking of quiet, Ino added another possible member to his list. What about having Hinata on your team? Naruto shrugged. That would be nice too. I mean, I don't really know anything about her except that she's quiet and nice. He gave it a second thought. I don't think it would be all that fun though. She is way too quiet. Ino quickly jumped in. Yeah, but maybe if you talked with her more then she wouldn't be so quiet. Have you ever thought maybe you talk too much, or you have never given her a fair chance? As much as I'd love for him to get rid of Sakura as my competition, girls gotta stick together. Maybe he just needs a push to see that Hinata is totally into him. Nah, as the words left his mouth, Ino once again mentally face-palmed. Somehow the same boy who could think so wisely around team synergy and clan politics could not see the situation with Hinata for what it was. Okay, so then hoping for Sakura and Kiba, interesting combination, but hey, you do you. She shrugged, knowing that it was unlikely for her to be on Sasuke's team. If things did go the way Naruto hoped, then that would be ideal for her as well. She did not like the idea of Sasuke and Sakura getting to be on the same team. It would definitely cause issues with her plans. Whatever the placements be, can you at least make sure to find time to train with me, and most likely she could show additions to my team. Naruto replied in earnest. Of course. Training with you guys really got me caught up in a ton of ways. Plus, it's always fun just hanging out. Even with team training, assignments, yada yada, I will make the time to come by. Plus, who knows, you might even need some help with the shop. You know I never mind helping out. And with the clones, just imagine how much I could do. Ino raised an eyebrow. Clones? You can't even make clones, and even if you could, they can't. Naruto's jaw dropped. Wait, I never told you about how I passed, did I? Exclamation mark quote. The subject somehow had never come up at the ramen shop. By this point it was already pretty late, and the two stood in front of the Yamanaka compound. Ino shared his expression. That's right. You didn't. How did you manage that? Naruto took a deep breath. Okay, so basically Mizuki was plotting this huge thing against the village where he would use me to steal the scroll of seals, this crazy thing that has a bunch of powerful forbidden techniques in it. He convinced me by telling me it was a makeup test, and then after having me steal the scroll and bringing it to a location near the outside of the village, I would have to learn any technique from it. But really he would kill me and then take the scroll to a village enemy or something and make a ton of cash. I was there just having spent so much time learning this cool version of the clone jutsu where I make real clones, and I was exhausted. That's when Iruka showed up and told me that there is no such thing as a makeup test. And that I was lied to. That's when, the jumbled mess of run-on sentences that encapsulated his report spilled from his lips as if it were word vomit incarnate. INO could barely keep up with what was happening, how it happened, etc. By the end of the ordeal she stood stupefied. Wow, just wow, Mizuki always had it out for him, but still, a village enemy. Naruto really beat a Chunin. Naruto bashfully laughed, scratching the back of his head. Yay, it's a lot. But, hey, I'm glad I made it. He flicked his Hittite, and I'm also glad we could make up. He did not intend on saying the words. They slipped out automatically. INO smiled, me too. She outstretched her arms, a gesture met with a confused look. Come on Naruto, friends hug each other after walking one another home. The scene of him randomly pulling her into a hug so many months ago ran through the boy's head. Oh, right. He returned her gesture and closed the small distance between them. The hug was brief, the smiles lingered. I forgot, it's been a while since we walked home together. INO turned away and walked past the gates of her compound, being sure to hide her smile. She didn't want him getting the wrong idea. Then again this was the same boy who was completely oblivious when it came to Hinata, then again maybe that meant he would get the wrong idea. He was a difficult one to read. She turned, waving, hey. Get home safe alright. Come by the shop sometime this weekend before we get placements. We can test that little clone trick of yours. Naruto pounded a thumbs up at his chest, will do. That's it for today, I will stop here. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you please consider subscribe and make sure to hit that like button, share with your friends and don't forget to check out author of this story. Details in description.